Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 29 of the Bright Horizons podcast. Today we're going to be talking about everything related to anger. How do you deal with it? Why do you get angry? Pretty much everything that encompasses that. And in fact, I was just talking about this earlier, that the Inside Out 2 movie recently came out. And I just thought it was very funny that we're finally talking about this critical emotion when he's probably one of the funniest characters in that movie. No spoilies in the comment, by the way. I haven't watched the movie yet.
I mean, how do you know that he's one of the funniest people if you haven't watched the movie?
Because I've watched the first one. Everyone's watched the first one.
I don't really remember the first one all that much, but
Devastating. Such a good movie, but devastating.
well, yeah, okay, I remember the devastating part.
Mhm.
Or it's funny because I actually don't remember the devastating part. Like, I know the devastating part, but I don't actually remember how it happened. I don't think I felt anything at that moment. I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't stick with me, but
Perhaps, but I don't know. I just thought that it was it's such a fascinating concept for a movie, the personification of emotions. I think that's really, really cool.
I know, but it always makes me wonder. Like, I don't think our brains work like that, right? That's like gotta be a person who has like multiple personality disorder. You know what I mean? Where you have different people making decisions in your brain, or maybe I don't know.
No,
Do
but
you
I think that you're different. Like, okay, let's just start off the conversation right here. Do you think that you're a different person when you're angry?
Yeah, I mean, no. I think it's like
Interesting. Okay.
think about like you take a fish. If it's swimming calmly versus swimming quickly, it's the same fish. You get what I'm saying? I don't think that you really separate the two. I think that it's still you. It's not
Okay,
aligned.
you can't compare a human to a fish.
Okay, but like for example, a person who does something bad. That's like saying that it wasn't you who did it. You did do it. It's not aligned with who you believe yourself to be, this self-image of yourself, but it's not a different person. Because I'd say that we all have some idealistic person that we want to be, but at the end of the day, we fall short of it usually, right? But does that mean that just because you made a wrong decision, you're a different person? No, you're a person who makes bad decisions, right? You get
I
my point?
disagree because you might be the same physical person. Like, obviously nothing about you has changed physically. Well, actually, that's not true either. When you get angry or when you have an adrenaline rush, why is your body able to function at higher capacities? For example, if you go to the gym and you're super, super angry about something and you're just blowing off steam.
Okay, if you
Why
take
is it-
caffeine, are you now a different person?
No, but that's different
Why is that different?
because you consumed something for energy. That's like saying, oh, if you take drugs, are you a different person?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, so
Still
it's
the
the same
same
thing with
human.
caffeine.
Yeah, you're still the same person. And same thing with anger, I think.
I don't, because think about it. Like, how should I put it? Okay, I'll just speak about my personal experience then. So when I'm extremely angry, like it takes a lot to get me there, but if I get extremely angry, I will go to the gym and just lift the weights like super.
Aggressively.
It's a very good word. It's a very good word. That's the perfect word. I was going to say, I didn't have a good word to put there. That was like the best way I could have put it. A very aggressive workout is one of my ways of getting out of that situation. Now, granted, after the workout, I still don't feel better, which is something that we'll talk about shortly because it's not a permanent solution to anger. But if you see me in the gym and when I am having a horrendous day and everything sucks, sometimes I will act out in anger and be just completely ripping the weights or go upstairs and just hit the bag for like 30 minutes straight to try and blow off steam. But normal me on an average day where I'm not extremely furious, I will simply go, do my workout. I'll still put in the effort and work hard because obviously that's why I'm there. But I won't act out in an aggressive manner. That doesn't mean that I'm aggressive towards the people around me. Like I don't treat people differently. However, my actions speak differently. It gives off a different image. Like you can kind of judge somebody a little bit. Your first impression of them is different based on how they act. So if I walk into a gym, smile on my face, just happy, lifting the weights, everything's fine.
Okay,
That's a
so
different image than
every day that you get up and you have a different move, do you consider yourself to be a different person? Because I feel like that doesn't make any sense. Now you're left with people who aren't taking accountability for their actions because that's just not the kind of person I usually am. Usually I'm a great person. But I think that your bad decisions and good decisions all encompass into one body, which is you. So if you choose to make bad decisions based on your anger or your sadness or whatever emotion that you're feeling, that's still you, right? Because you can see that there are people who get angry a lot more often than other people, right? A person who's always calm is never going to have a quote unquote angry persona, but someone who is an angry person may never have a calm persona. Would you say that the calm person is just a calm persona or the angry person is just an angry persona? No, you would say that's a person who's angry. That's a person who is calm.
All right, touche. That's valid. I'll give you that one.
I think that's another debate win in my bank.
All right, relax, buddy. It's not always about winning the debate, okay?
It's always about winning.
No, it's not.
Actually,
Not
I shouldn't
always.
preach that. It is not always about winning.
Exactly.
It's about coming to a consensus. But when you're right, you don't need to come to a consensus. And I was right. But moving on, I mean, I'm curious to ask, I guess, why do you think that like people are disassociated with anger? Because I have a point on that as well that I would.
The reason why I say it is maybe it's me finding a way to excuse myself and my own behavior when I'm angry. Because the fact of the matter is, I feel like most people do act out in anger at some point in their lives. I don't think anybody goes through their life without getting mad at somebody or throwing a fit or, more importantly, lashing out at people who had nothing to do with it. Everybody goes through that, and especially if you're in a relationship, I'm sure that you've been on the receiving end of that once or twice before too. It happens. We're all human. That's just the way that life goes. But I guess that in recent times, I've had a lot of frustration about many different stresses in my life. And I feel like the way I've dealt with those experiences hasn't always been in a mature manner. So maybe I'm trying to excuse my own behavior by saying, oh, I'm not me when I'm angry. When in reality, it is me, and I need to take more accountability for it. So that could be one way of looking at it, and certainly something I look forward to understanding as I move forward in life. But I feel like it's kind of tough to say because when you are in the moment and anger is not just something you feel. The reason why I chose anger as an example and not something like happiness, for example, like a good argument you could have made there is, oh, are you when you are super, super happy? Like one of the best days of your life? For example, let's say your wedding night. Is that still you? That could have been a very good argument to make. But the reason why I chose anger is it's such a feral emotion. It is strong, it is violent, and it just completely consumes you if you're not careful. And it's one of those emotions that you can feel throughout your entire body. Like when I get angry, my face gets super, super hot. Like not red, just hot. Like I can feel my blood metaphorically boiling.
Well, the thing is, like, there is scientific evidence.
Exactly, like
when you
proper
get
responses.
Angry, your body heats up, your blood pressure increases. But my point that I wanted to say was that in our society, we have a very big issue of people associating themselves with emotions. Because you aren't an emotion, right? An emotion is something you feel, not an identity. Sound panel just fell off the wall.
That's a fantastic
way to start this episode. But anyway, back to what I was saying. What I was saying is that people associate themselves with these emotions all the time. And that kind of gives them the leniency to say, it's not my fault. This is just who I am. But now people are negligible to change. They don't want to change because they believe they've tricked themselves. They've even gaslit themselves into believing this is who I am. I'm just an angry person. I'm just a depressed person. I'm just a sad person.
Yeah.
Or that's why I'd say it's a double-edged sword, right? Because on one hand, you can view yourself, hey, I'm a happy person. So when you go through life with this happy person perspective, when you go to make a decision based on an event, you're going to take into account, what kind of person am I, right? If you associate yourself as a happy person, you're going to make a better decision. Like, for example, suppose you're swerving in and out of traffic and you cut somebody off. If you're a happy person, and that person honks at you, right? If you're a happy and calm person who's, content with his life, if that person drives up and flips you off, you would say, hey, I'm sorry, man. It's on me. I made a mistake. But now the same action occurs. Someone who identifies with this angry persona, they might, flip the person off back, right? They might start yelling things at them. They might try and cut them off again. Two situations, two different people making two different decisions just based on how they view themselves or what kind of emotion that they're feeling that day. So if you can train yourself to associate yourself with happiness as opposed to many of the other emotions, because I think a lot of them I find it hard to. I'd say the basic emotions, happiness and joy, is like the one thing you want to connect yourself to, because in any situation, it can benefit you. Whereas every other emotion has its own destructive capabilities. But I would say that it's impossible to label yourself as one thing.
Wait, are you saying that happiness is not like doesn't have a tendency to be destructive?
I don't think it has.
I think that the one place where it can be a bit destructive is contentment, where I don't think that contentment in and of itself is a bad thing. But if you're complacent, that's a better word. Complacent with where you are, even if you're like, especially if your situation right now doesn't align with where you want to be in life, your goals. So if your current situation doesn't align with your goals, but you make no effort to accomplish your goals or move towards them, that's complacency.
But then I'd pose the question: is a person who is complacent without moving towards their goals truly a happy person? Have they achieved true happiness? If you are unable to chase your goal, and you aren't taking any active steps towards the purpose you want to achieve, is that real happiness?
Well, you can delude yourself into believing you're happy, and I don't think that you'd be able to tell the difference. That's why when we're playing video games or watching Netflix or whatever we're using to distract ourselves, we don't feel, oh my God, this sucks. Like it's after the fact that you decide, oh, wait a minute, I just spent 2 hours playing Brawl Stars. That's when you're thinking, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? I got to get back on track. I got to do this. I got to do that. But in the moment, you're kind of like, hey, I'm just happy. I'm relaxing, taking a break after a long day, whatever. But again, it does make sense, the whole true happiness thing. Like if it is true happiness, then it's not going to be
But
self-destructive.
it's hard to find out what true happiness is.
And then again, the definition of true happiness is different for each person as well. So,
but in any case, don't subject yourself to be aligned with one emotion, because in your life you're going to feel every emotion. So if you think to yourself, I'm just this kind of person, nothing I can do about it, you're not going to change, right? That's reality. Is if you don't hold yourself accountable for the mistakes you make, then what's stopping you from ever making the same mistakes? That's I think that's a big point of contention with religion. Is they say, if nobody's going to hold you accountable for your actions, then what's stopping you from doing anything? Now, I think that we've evolved to a time where we can understand like intrinsic and moral values that allow us to, function the way we do. But even then, if there's nothing holding you accountable, there's nothing stopping you from doing wrong. And if you don't hold yourself accountable for the mistakes that you make, now you're leading yourself down a path of self-destruction, because you're going to continue to do wrong because it doesn't affect you, because you don't believe it affects you. But in the end, one day when you come to your senses and realize, hey, this is not the kind of person that I wanted to be, you're going to have a very bad reflection later on in your life. So you can't become over-consumed with emotion. You need to look at things from both logical and emotional perspectives and evaluate, what kind of person am I? What kind of person do I want to be? And how can I achieve that person through whatever event is happening in your life?
but that is a difficult thing to do.
Of course, I think that everything we preach here is far easier said than done, because it's very hard to control your anger, because it's as you said, it's a very powerful emotion. So when you find yourself in angry situations, I find myself in situations where I'm just doing things to spite people because that's how I feel in the moment. And it's not the kind of person I want to be. Like, there are times in my life where I'll sacrifice everything for the people around me. And then there are times in my life where I'll be the most selfish person ever. And that's because I'm not perfect, right? I'm fallible. I make mistakes too. So these emotions are very powerful over us. But I think one big thing is you need to also know to recognize when an emotion is taking place. A lot of people don't have that. And now they are, doing actions and doing actions. And they don't think, I'm doing this out of anger. They think I'm doing this because it's me. And now you're going back to associating yourself with an emotion, which is a very, destructive tendency.
Yeah, so the best thing is to try and let that phase of anger wear off before you make any serious decisions. Because the truth is, I feel like most of us go back to regret the things that we did when we were angry. Like, if you got mad at somebody who really cares about you because in the moment you were dealing with something and you just were having a bad day, you yell at them, now you hurt their feelings, and then a couple hours later you're cooling off and you're like, damn, I can't believe I said that. Now I have to go apologize. I have to really make it up to them. But honestly, I find that somebody else's emotional state is often the same way that people describe trust. You know how they always say that trust is like a plate? Once it's broken, you can try and glue the pieces back together, but it'll never be perfectly as it once was. I feel like somebody else's emotional state is the same, because you can get mad at them, lash out, and apologize and everything. And yes, they'll get over it eventually, but it'll take some time. And not to mention, especially over the course of the first few months of that incident happening, it is likely not going to be easily forgotten. It's not one of those things that you just immediately forget, like what you had for lunch last week.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things. It leaves a scar on you if not handled properly. And that's something that I saw in I don't really know if it was a podcast or an interview, but it was with a man named, he was a doctor, Dr. Gabor Mate or something like that. He's been like studying like a lot of different things, and he has a lot of knowledge on these topics. And he was talking to, oh man, I forgot the guy's name. But either way, it's on YouTube. It's about how to deal with, he said how to deal with rage. That's what the video is called. And he was talking about good anger and bad anger. And when he mentioned that, I was completely hooked. I wondered, what does that even mean? How can anger be a good thing? But if you really break it down, why do you get mad? There has to be a biological or mental explanation as to why you get angry, right? It has to be a response to something. So he explained it as it is a response to someone or something pushing your boundaries. So let's say that somebody close to you yells at you over something that had nothing to do with you. That is crossing a boundary in your eyes. So you get angry. You say, hey, what the hell? I didn't do anything. Like, what is your problem? Get off my back. Something like that. Or somebody flipping you off in traffic for no reason. Hey, I didn't do anything. What is this guy's problem? Either way, you feel invaded by some sort of issue, okay? And the best way to get over that is the immediate response from the mind is anger. So your brain's like, hey, what the hell, dude? Let's like fight. Let's get out of this situation. Like, we don't deserve this. But good anger is something that happens in the spur of the moment. Spur of the moment. Sounds better. And it's something that like is an immediate response to the situation. And then once the situation subsides, that anger is gone. That's what good anger is. Bad anger, then, as you can probably infer, is a response to something that cannot be fully conveyed, so it is suppressed and held within for days, weeks, months, or years. That's how we end up with spiteful people in society. People who go on every day just feeling angry at everybody around them. Think about this for a second. When are the times where you feel the most angry at other people? It's typically when you went through something, whether it was in the past day, week, or month, whatever. You went through some negative experience and you've been carrying your anger about that. You haven't fully processed the experience. Then somebody else comes along, does something minor to tick you off, like, I don't know, spill their coffee on you or something, or cut you off in traffic. Typically, that wouldn't make you mad. But this day, it makes you very angry because you're pent up with anger from other situations. So that's where bad anger comes into play. Something that's not dealt with. Something that you suppress for long enough that eventually you just explode because you're just holding on to so many things. And then it's like a compressed air canister.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just what's going to happen eventually. So the best way to deal with it is to just, as these emotions arise, you need to find a method for dealing with them, especially anger.
Yeah, and I think one big understanding you need to have is that nothing happens without reason.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't feel emotions for no reason. And there's two, I don't know if I was watching a video or if this was just an idea I thought of. Might have been a video. But there are two categories of events that can lead to you being angry, both internal or external. So somebody else could do something that could lead to your anger, or you could be feeling something that leads to your anger. And one, I was searching up like what are leading causes of anger in society, and a lot of them had to do with disorders, right? Mental disorders, problems that people have within their brain.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those, like that idea, made me think that there's two sides to that coin. One is that if it's other people, when you see somebody else that's angry, be more considerate, because maybe they are going through something that you don't know. They're going through a problem that you couldn't understand. Something else is going on in their life that you don't know of. On the other hand, when it comes to you, if you have these kinds of problems, if you think, hey, I'm getting angry a lot, maybe I have an issue. There's a reason for that. So search within yourself for answers. The idea is that there is no effect without a cause. So all of these emotions, this anger that you're feeling, comes from somewhere. It comes from something. You never wake up in the morning and feel angry for no reason, because I don't think people are programmed that way. So it's either something you went to bed with that's making you feel angry, or something that you're waking up to that's making you angry. So either there's something in the past to be angry about, or something in the future to be angry about, if you really think about it. Because there's either past problems or consequences in the future. Those are the two things that you're always angry about. So if you are able to look into the future and look into the past, then you can evaluate your situation. Be like, why am I in the place that I'm in? A lot of people, it seems so simple. It seems so elementary. Hey, if you have a problem, figure out what's causing it. It's pretty simple. But a lot of people don't do it. It's, I think Prince Ye said it in a video where he said, we're constantly mopping up the floor instead of turning off the faucet. And so you're leaving a sink running and you keep mopping up the mess, but it's never going to stop because you're not stopping the root of the problem, because you're not looking where is the problem coming from. So in your life, similarly, you have to look for where problems come from, not just what the problem is. That's too superficial. You need to look beneath the surface, because there's a lot more and more valuable things there. Like, think about a tree. What is the most important part of a tree? Its roots, the stuff that's below the surface, because that's what holds it up. That's what makes it exist. It only exists because of the roots. So you need to look to the roots of your problems to solve them.
Facts. Now let's do a little game here, shall we? I'm gonna give you a scenario, and I want you to tell me how you're gonna handle it. Okay?
Okay.
So, let's say I'm in a relationship, okay? Long-term relationship, all right? This is a very, we know that we're going to be here for the next, for the rest of our lives, let's say, okay? Now, I go through a very, very rough day, okay? I have just a horrible day. Everything sucks. It's just one of those days where, not much you can do. Now, my partner or significant other doesn't necessarily ask me what's wrong, but then when she starts realizing, oh, you're being this type of way, and starts complaining to me, I get angry and I lash out, okay? Now I have hurt her feelings, and I'm also angry at myself because of what I said and the situation I'm in. What would be your next step in this situation? What would you do? Because I feel like this is a common situation that a lot of people go through, right? And realistically, a lot of relationships end because people don't know how to deal with a situation like that. So what would be your advice?
Okay, so after the argument and everything's taken place, you're now at the end of this story. What do you do? I mean, it's pretty simple, to me at least, is to apologize. Even though you might not think you're in the wrong, you are. And also, I don't think anything else comes good out of not apologizing or admitting error. Because unless they were belittling you for it, then you choosing to lash out was your own decision. And I don't think that you should, first off, if you're in a relationship where you're uncomfortable sharing your problems with your partner, I think that you're in a bad relationship. Now, I understand that a lot of people have a fear of that, especially not that it's only, but mostly when it comes to men from our society, that they have this issue, this idea that, oh, I need to have no problems. They can't see my problems. I have to deal with them on my own. And it's sad to say that I think it's true in a lot of scenarios where if a man shows emotion, he ends up in a worse relationship status. Now, not saying that every girl is like that, but there are a lot. So to those of you that believe that, hey, I can't show emotions, don't engage in a long conversation until you learn how to deal with it yourself. And I don't think you should engage in a long-term relationship until you know how to deal with your own problems. I think that if you're not ready to handle yourself, how can you expect to handle somebody else?
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Now, I apologize, but they're still angry. What do I do now?
I mean, first step, ask them what they're angry about. If they're angry because of what you did, I'd say there's nothing you can do. I'd say you give them space and you say, hey, I apologize. I tried. This thing happened in my past, but unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that now. This is something that we preach all the time, is that the past is the past. And yes, I've made mistakes, and I can say that moving forward, I will try my best to not make those mistakes. I can't promise you I'm perfect, because obviously I'm not, but I will try my best. That's what I would say, because in the end, if your partner doesn't have the trust that you can do better, I don't know if you got the greatest partner.
Valid. That's valid. Okay, fair enough. But now I want to move on to what I was mainly focusing on for this episode is now that you identified, okay, this is anger, this is how we feel it, like it completely changes you and can consume you if you don't attack it right. How do you deal with anger? Do you have anything you want to say first, or are you going to let me take the wheel?
One thing I'll quickly say is, from a scientific standpoint, meditation is a proven way of helping with it, at least if you take logic and science together, because anger raises blood pressure and temperature. Meditation lowers blood pressure and temperature. So I think it's safe to assume that if you do the two, they will somewhat balance each other out. But there's another point about meditation that people don't understand, is that doing constant meditation can help you build resilience to anger issues. Because I think that big outrages of anger don't come usually from one event, but rather a series of events that have occurred in succession, right? So I think that if you're doing constant meditation, you're allowing yourself to almost free yourself of past angers. And it's like wiping the slate clean. Not saying that, hey, I'm angry, I'm just going to go sit and breathe for 5 seconds and I'll be all good. No, obviously not. Of course, you're still going to feel these emotions. But I think it's a big way to combat it, because it lowers your scientific point, it lowers your blood pressure. And from a more philosophical point, it builds resilience to future events.
Okay, that's valid. Well, what I was going to talk about is something that doctor mentioned in that video. He said that there was a Buddhist teaching. That kind of hooked me immediately, because I was like, maybe it's something I haven't heard of. Shocker, it was not. It was something I have never heard of. And it's an acronym called RAIN. And RAIN stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. Now, this is a response that has been studied by several psychologists. And people have written books, case studies, a lot of things on this practice. And they said that it's one of the best ways to deal with negative emotions that are powerful, such as anxiety, depression, anger, all these different things. This procedure works well for all of them. So what does it stand for? RAIN. Start with R. Recognize, which is what we said. So what does it mean? Obviously, the easiest one is to recognize your damn problem. If you can't see what is wrong, you're more cooked than I could have ever imagined or quantified in words. So it may not always be obvious what you're angry about. Like I said earlier, it's typically a lot of things built up. And like you just said, a lot of things you get angry about in succession. That's when you start to lash out and get more angry. So you need to attack it at the root, just like you said. You got to look for, what is it that I'm really angry about? How am I feeling in this moment? So recognize that. The next step is to allow it. Allow your mind to process what it is feeling. Because the biggest problem with our brains nowadays is it's looking for a way to continue functioning. It's not always looking for a permanent solution. For example, if you have a small cut, you can slap a Band-Aid on that. I just spat everywhere. If you have a small cut, you can put a Band-Aid on it and call it a day. But if you're gushing blood because your arm is almost about to fall off because it's been chopped by a machete or something, no way a Band-Aid is going to fix that. You need a proper solution to fix it. So that's the best way I'd compare anger to any typical day or typical emotion. You can't just act normally as if nothing happened and suppress that anger. You need to actually allow your mind to process it and be like, okay, what is our problem here? Is my arm going to fall off, or do I have a small cut? If I have a small cut, all right, we're good. Let's keep moving. If my arm's about to fall off, let's take a minute, allow the processing, and focus on finding a good solution. So that's allowing. The next one is investigate. Investigate what is the root cause of your problem. Investigate what your response was to it, and try to understand who you are. How do you respond to these things when it happens? Because like you said, emotions are just responses to our daily lives. We talk about this so much, it's almost like, what's the word? A broken record.
Yeah.
We're always talking about it. Emotions are not some things you identify with. It's just something that comes and goes. Even us, like I'm sitting here talking about how I get angry, or that in the past few weeks, I've had difficult days where I've been completely furious over different things. Hell, today is a really good example. Getting stuck in traffic, missing the turn like 6 different times, and spending way too long on the road. I was angry. And sure, I definitely acted on it as well. But the truth is, how do you learn from it? You got to do some digging on yourself, which is something that David Goggins is always talking about. You got to explore yourself and understand, how do you act in these situations. Once you break yourself down, you know your response patterns and what your plan is. Then you can make changes and actually focus on it. So that's I. Investigate yourself. And lastly, N. Nurture. You can have all the understanding in the world, but if you don't actually give it some room for growth or put effort into the process, you're not going to grow. Just like if you had a plant that was put in a perfect pot of soil and given sunlight, without water, it's completely useless. So that epiphany of yours, that understanding, is completely useless in any situation if you don't actually act on it or nurture that understanding. So when you know, hey, this is what I do when I get angry, start making changes. Start saying, okay, I'm going to start taking a step away from my work when I get angry, or I'm going to go give myself 5 minutes to just relax and breathe before I make a decision. Actually act on your understanding. And that's the acronym RAIN. And I thought that was really cool because that gives you a step-by-step process for dealing with one of the most complex emotions the human mind can experience.
I completely agree. I think that another aspect that I learned about, it's called rumination. Do you know what it is?
Never heard of it.
It's actually a very simple thing. It's like staying hooked up on something. So if an event happens, you continue to think about it over and over and over, even after the moment's passed. So this happens in both positive ways and negative ways. So if a really happy moment happens in your life, you'll be like, damn, remember that time that this happened? Remember that time that this happened? You might have a friend like that who, holds on to that highlight of their life and is always like, hey, remember that one time I did that, right? That's rumination. It's when you're hanging on to an event that's happened. A lot of people tend to do this with anger, and that's what leads them to hold on for so long, is that they'll think about this event, and it's like, man, that makes me so angry. And then they'll go to bed, and they'll wake up in the morning and just think about that same event. So the event just keeps on happening, even though it's only occurred once. If you think about it as a as a timeline, the event happened here at the beginning of this succession of anger. Yet you're over here, this event is long gone, but you continue to think about it. So to you, it still exists in the moment. You are still living in that angry moment. That's why you're feeling that way. Because think about it. Every second you enter a new moment. And in this specific moment, do you have anything to be angry about? And oftentimes the answer is no. And yet you still punish yourself. Because if you think about it, when you are angry, you bring peace to no one, including yourself, right? No one around you is going to enjoy you being angry. And neither are you. You can try to feed yourself off of your anger, but a long-term held on to anger over a past event will never prove useful. Because if you think about it, anger is like a war inside yourself. Because as you said, anger makes you a different kind of person, right? You have two personalities that are fighting each other, kind of like Prince Zuko. He has two internal problems that are conflicting with each other. You are making decisions that don't align with who you are. And now you're fighting a war in your mind of doing things that aren't aligned with who you are. And it's actually Sun Tzu that said that nobody has ever
benefited from a prolonged war.
Precisely. That's the quote I was going to say. So you aren't benefiting yourself by holding on to these moments. You are choosing to live in a past event that no longer exists. You are choosing to be angry over something that doesn't exist.
That's kind of trippy.
Yeah, it only exists if you let it exist. That's the funny part.
Yeah, I think that the fact that something is in the past is very difficult for us to understand. Mm-hmm. I feel like that honestly, you could talk about that on its own in a whole episode about the weird way the brain understands time. Because something that happened yesterday, we should forget about it and move on and get on with our lives. But it's hard to do that because humans are also fact-based creatures and research-based, pattern-based. When we see something, we write it down in our brain like, oh, maybe next time I should keep this in my brain so I can think about it next time. And also, it shows you somebody's true colors every now and then. So if you keep that in mind, the next time they do something like that, it's kind of expected. I think that's why we have a hard time letting go of anger or sadness from the past.
Yeah.
But one thing I found very helpful in dealing with negative emotions is understanding that nobody else is responsible for your happiness. Nobody. Yeah. Because just like how you are looking out for your own happiness, everybody else is looking out for their own as well. So regardless of how much you care about others, which I hope you do, you should be looking out for other people and taking care of them and making sure that they feel good. But at the end of the day, you aren't responsible for anybody else. And nobody else is responsible for you too. It's not your girlfriend's job, your brother's job, your parents' job to make you feel good about your life. It's your own perspective on it. It's how you feel. What do you accomplish on a day-to-day basis? And when you really take it into your own hands, that extreme self-accountability, I think that's when your life gets 10 times better because you understand you can do something about it. When you give the power of your emotions to somebody else, it ruins you because now if they are feeling bad or they go through something, they lash out at you and make you feel bad. Now all of a sudden your day is ruined, even though it had nothing to do with you in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
If they were upset about something that had nothing to do with you, now your day is ruined, and all you can say is, "Damn, I gave all that power to somebody else."
Exactly. You're just losing control over your own life,
Exactly.
which doesn't really make sense. And I like the idea. No one is responsible for your happiness. It's a great point. Because I think that we all feel like, dude, my day is horrible. Why is nobody helping me? But the truth is nobody is under any obligation to do so. The only person who should always be there to help you is you. And I believe you should be able to reach out for a helping hand. But if nobody's there for you, sometimes you got to pick yourself up. That's a sad reality of life. But another thing is, if you are going to talk to people about your problems with anger, you should talk to people who aren't involved in the situation or people that you know will provide an objective point of view. Because, for example, suppose that I, got into a fight with somebody. If I told you about, and I was really angry about it, if I told you about the problem, you'd be like, all right, let's go jump that guy, right? We don't like that guy. Let's go beat him up. If I told some random person about it, they'd be like, or if I told my mom about it, she would be like, no, it's not worth it to, go back and get hurt. Let's just get you some, first aid, heal up, and you'll feel better, right? Two completely different reactions to the same problem. But it's because there's different people associated with it. So to all of you out there that are, you might be going through something, you need to talk to somebody about it, you can go to the Samaritans. It's a anonymous, helpline. You can call them whenever, and it's just a random person, and they'll try to help you through your problems because they'll provide an objective opinion. I mean, of course, slightly subjective because they would want you to be happy, but I think they don't have any personal investment in the problem. So even sometimes you come to me with a problem, but I don't really have any investment in that problem, then you'll ask me, hey, what do you think about this? And I'd give you my honest opinion.
Yeah.
In your life, you need to seek people who are going to be honest about your situation. If you have a bunch of yes men and liars around you, then you're never going to improve, and your situation will continue to deteriorate. Because because sometimes we can't hold ourselves accountable, right? Like when you get angry, if you're in an angered state, you will do whatever it takes to justify your actions. Because you will do something wrong, but you'll be like, I'm right. Even though in the long run, once you calm down, you will know I'm not right. In the moment, you believe you are. It's a quote I've used definitely before on a previous episode, was that just as you cannot see your reflection in boiling water, you cannot, see your true self in an angered state. So whenever you're angry, it's not a reflection of who you really are, but you will do whatever it takes to justify that image. So if you're in clear water and you're looking at yourself, then you're going to tell myself this is the person that I am, right? Because this is what I'm seeing. This is exactly what I'm seeing. But when water starts to boil and you look at it, you're getting this distorted image of yourself. Now you're going to do actions that you believe are aligned with that distorted image. And you will justify those actions by in the moment believing that you're right. Because most people don't make decisions in the moment thinking that they're wrong. A lot of the time they evaluate and they evaluate incorrectly, but they believe that, hey, you know what? It's okay. Right now, it's not a big problem. But the truth is, in the long run, you'll realize that it was a big problem. So try to seek help from people that are far away from your situations, that can give you objective answers and tell you that, hey, this isn't the kind of person that you should be. Instead, try something like this. Instead of somebody that'll just hop on your train and be like, you know what? Let's be angry together, man. That's not the kind of person that you need around you. You need someone who's going to keep it real with you. Someone who's going to tell you how it is. Because in the end, those are the only people you can truly rely on.
You know what just came to my mind when you talked about the boiling water analogy? You've used that one very, so many times now. And I haven't thought about this. But what is it that causes water, like the surface of water, to break when it's boiling?
I don't know.
Okay, yes, but
Bubbles.
there you go, bubbles. Bubbles, as they pop, they create ripples in the water. These ripples distort the reflection that you're seeing. Now, let's imagine a lake for a second, okay? Other people can throw stones into this lake and create ripples along it. But the truth is, the lake will always return to a calm and steady state once time has passed.
Yeah.
So there's no point in acting out in a rippled state when you know that you're going to return to a calm, clear state where you can easily see the situation. Regardless of anybody else interfering with you and causing those ripples, you will get back to normal. So don't act out in the moment. Don't act out when you're angry. Make a clear and logical decision once you have let all the ripples subside, because that's when you'll make the best decision.
It's kind of funny because like people will be like, oh, there might be people constantly jumping in this lake, right? That's my mind. But if you really think about how long a lake has been around for compared to how long humans have been around for, or how many splashes must have occurred in this lake, you would see that in the lake's lifetime, there have been such little amounts of splashes, right? And it's also about your time frame. What do you assess to be, a lot of things? Ladies and gentlemen, we may have encountered a bit of a technical difficulty. Now, here in Canada, it is pretty hot right now, pretty hot, and our house does not have AC. And our studio, very small. Heat, very small studio, lots of electronic equipment, stuff heats up. So our camera got very angry, started boiling up, almost exploded. But what we did to let it cool off was give it some time, give it some space. In your life, when you're angry, sometimes you just got to walk away from the situation. And this kind of ties back to rumination, about focusing on the same thing or same event that continues to occur, right? Is that you're hung up on it. You're not letting go of it. You're not giving it space. You're not giving yourself space to breathe. Think about these angers as like blankets covering your body. It's like smothering you. It's literally going to make you stop breathing until you give yourself the space to, be like, damn, reflect on the anger that you have.
I'm practically not breathing already. It's so hot. Oh my God.
It is very hot here. I'm not going to lie.
Burning to a crisp.
Mm-hmm.
But you know something I was thinking about?
Yeah.
The best way to get over an angry situation is to expand your scope and think about the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
When you get angry about something, for example, one great example is when something blows up in the middle of our episode. Whether it's the books falling on your head, the sound panel falling off the wall, the camera heating up and almost exploding. In the grand scheme of things, I could totally or in the small scheme of things, I could easily freak out and be like, oh my God, our episode is cooked. But no, you just got to relax. Look at the grand scheme of things. Like, this episode's going to be fine. We're just going to come back. Give it some time. Let it cool off. Take a break. Come back. Record. And then bada bing, bada boom. We're on a roll again.
Because, in the end, it's going to be all right. Life is going to be all right. Eventually, the lake of your life is going to return to a still lake.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be so caught up in, oh my God, there's a splash here, there's a splash there. Because in the end, it's all going to work out. I believe that if you continue to walk through life with a positive mentality, in the end, it will work out. And positive mentality embodies basically everything that we've talked about thus far on the podcast. Being, motivation and drive to achieve your goals, or having a positive outlook on life, or having positive people around you,
dealing with negative emotions.
Exactly. All of those things, they all kind of cohesively embody the main thing that we're trying to teach, which is a positive or I was going to say a brighter horizon, but doesn't really count. But a positive mentality, which at the end of your life leads to a brighter horizon. That's the way that I see it. That's what I think embodies what we tried with our message. So you need to be able to, look at the grand scheme of things and realize that this anger, it's not going to really help you. It's not going to drive you to be any better. You're going to say something.
I had a epiphany. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this either to you in person or on a previous episode, but I saw a Instagram reel, and it's essentially a bunch of white dots, and there's one black dot. Okay, so it starts with one black dot, then it becomes one black dot and 3 white dots, one black dot and 7 white dots, and then one black dot, 10 white dots, and it's pretty much you just have one black dot, but the number of white dots continues to increase. And the caption was, this day right now, and it's the black spot, this day in a week, this day in a month, this day in a year. So it's essentially telling you this bad day sucks right now because it's all you know. But in a month or a year, it's shadowed by all these good days that you don't really remember it anymore. So why take that anger from that one bad day and make the next day a bad day, and the next day, and the next day? Now, next thing you know, you have a week full of black dots on your calendar instead of good ones. So what is the point of, ruining your life over this one day when you know that in the grand scheme of things, you're going to forget about it?
Yeah, I think that idea of expanding scope, which you talked about on the last episode with the work-life balance aspect, is that you're not going to be able to have a perfectly balanced life, right? And things sometimes aren't going to work out in your favor. But if you understand that at the end of the day, if you walk through life with a positive mindset and you continue to work towards your goals with a smile on your face, in the end, it's going to be all right. There are going to be hiccups. Nobody lives a perfect life. Nobody is going to live a life without sadness, without anger. But I think that should be the most reassuring aspect of feeling bad, is when you have a bad day, you can look around and say, that person next to me, they've probably had a bad day too. The person in front of me that I'm lashing my anger out on, they've probably had a bad day too. Everybody has these bad days, but it doesn't give us the right or the justification to act out, to lash out, especially at the people we care about. Because I think that, like, for example, alcoholism, it's such a terrible thing. And, there's a lot of people that suffer from that. Because, and when I say suffer from it, both the people that are drinking and the people that are affected by it. So your actions directly have correlation to other people. The way you respond to your anger is going to affect everybody around you. Like, think about, like, the domino effect of if you're working your job and you're an angry person, how that can spread to everybody around you, right? Because even think about it. Suppose you do someone wrong because you're angry. You do something wrong to them. They're going to gossip about the whole office to you and say, oh, this person sucks, this person did this person did that. And everybody's going to have this negative view of you. But it's not so much that they have a negative view, it's that they're looking through a negative lens at all. Because when we think about negative things, obviously we are in a negative state. I'm not going to be happy thinking about your demise. It doesn't make sense. And if you are, then you're thinking in an angered state because you're seeking revenge instead of forgiveness, which I don't condone and I don't believe is right. So to prey on somebody else's demise as a root of your happiness, I don't think is true happiness, at least. I don't think that should be I don't think that's a fulfilling way to live your life. So when you have all these people that are now negatively gossiping about you, all of you, everybody in this office is now living a negative life or is going to have a bad day. Everybody is in a bad state because of you choosing to make a bad decision. So if you can't do it for yourself, do it for everybody around you, because everybody else is depending on you to also be a happy person. And in the society, we really do depend on each other. If you want to believe that you can do it solo, I'd like to see you try. But there is the old adage that if you want to go quick, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I used to be a very do it myself kind of guy, and I feel like I still kind of am. But I've learned that you need to rely on other people, that in the end, you aren't going to be everything. You might think that you're big shot, you're this guy, you can do whatever. But in the end, you're going to get a hell of a lot further if you accept the help from other people and you don't dismiss them because of the state that you're in. Instead, take the time by yourself to process the pain that you have felt and then choose to make a decision based on that.
I was just thinking about something when you talked about being a big shot, being able to do it yourself. I figured that we should talk about ego and humility on one of our next episodes. I feel like that would be a very good topic of conversation because a lot of the things we talk about has almost a silver lining in it. Because on one hand, I'm saying, hey, to deal with your anger, expand the scope. Look at this day in the perspective of a year. But also, you don't want to expand the scope so far that now you're also incorporating, for example, other people's interactions or thoughts about you into how you feel. You want to keep it focused on yourself, right? You got to keep the scope small enough that it's focused on your life, but large enough that you don't freak out about one day. So there's a balance to be found in it, kind of like what we were talking about last week with work-life balance and how you need to find a cohesive way to make both of them work perfectly. There's a lot of aspects in your life that you're going to need to learn to do that too, because on one hand, yeah, it's very important to be able to work with others and to achieve your goals. You need other people, 100%. But also, you need to be able to stand on your own legs and work when it comes to it. When something needs to be done and you're the only person there, you got to be able to do it. You can't have other people there to always push you to succeed or to chase your goals. Nobody is going to be there every second of your life. And you know what? It's something that David Goggins talks about all the time when he talks about SEAL training and Hell Week. You know how you can quit Hell Week? You can walk up there, ring that bell, and walk away from there altogether. And he says that it's always the 1 second decisions that count. You could go through the whole week except for the last second and quit right there and lose everything. Nobody else is in your brain helping you in those 1 second decisions. It's just you. So you need to win those seconds. You need to win every decision in your brain to stay focused and on track. Can't get derailed just because nobody else is there to watch you.
It's kind of similar to the coin flipping, where in your head, you know what you want, right? You know that secretly deep down, you know what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
But you try to let somebody else do it because you don't want to bear the responsibility of your own actions. So I think that even with anger, is that people just say I'm an angry person, and they're trying to walk away from accepting the reality that it is their fault. That even, I think it's funny because a lot of people are like, I had a bad day, which is why I lashed out. It's not my fault. It's not my fault that all the stresses in my life have caused me to act this way. But sadly, unfortunately, and realistically, it is. Because in the end, you chose to act in the way that you did. And it's not like you're supposed to be perfect, but take accountability. That when you are angry and you make a decision based on that, it's on you. You did it. You chose that. And I'm not speaking as some saint who's never done this, because I know the reason I can testify to this is because I've done it all the time. I'll tell you a quick story about me and how I've realized that anger is never the right way to do things. And trying to live with it is never worth it. Because I don't know if I told this when we talked about forgiveness and you have no enemies, but one thing is with my family, especially when we were young, we'd always make sure that we said goodnight to our parents before we went to sleep, because you never know when you're going to wake up. And I knew that there were countless times where I'd get into a fight with my mom and I'd go to sleep without saying goodnight. But many times, she'd walk into my room way past when I should be asleep, but I might still be a little bit awake. And I'd pretend to be asleep. And she would always forgive me. So I was like, you know what? It's okay. I'm sorry for everything. Even if it wasn't her fault, she would still say, I'm sorry. Because it's not worth it to bear that anger and that sadness, that resentment, because there's no point to it. It never made the situation better for both of us to go to sleep crying. It never made the situation better for both of us to increase our blood pressure for no reason. It never made the situation better to be angry. Even though there are external circumstances leading to your anger, your choice to act on it is your choice. You chose to act in that manner. Take responsibility for it and choose to change as well.
That's honestly a perfect note to end it on. So I'd say the big takeaways from this episode are, when you get angry, which you will in life, understand that you don't have to act immediately. You can take time to step away from the situation, reign, recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture, and take the time that you need to solve these situations. Nobody is going to hate you if you take time. Think about how I'm talking right now. I take pauses because I need to think, because I want to find the best way to articulate my thoughts. Same way, if you're angry, you don't have to rush to get a response out. Take your time, find the best solution, and don't hurt the people around you.
Before you guys go, you already know what time it is. It's time for Quote
Of
the
Week.
Hit 'em.
Quote of the week. Waiting for your life to change without changing from within is like staring at a mirror and expecting it to smile first.
Honestly, it's a beautiful quote.
And that's from my boy Kinzer MB, the Instagram
Oh, wow.
account. Love that guy so much.
I do wonder. I mean, hey, maybe someday we could collab with Kinzer MB. But I wanted to ask, I wonder if he comes up with these quotes or if they're from somewhere else. But in any case, I think it's beautiful, and I love what he does. Make sure that you guys go check out Kinzer MB. And also, I referenced Prince EA a bunch in this video, and I really want you guys to go check him out if you haven't. I think he makes really great, positive content, and I think it really helped me change my life. But in the end, as you guys always know, you need to ensure that you keep it cool. that you keep it calm, and you understand that life can be breezy if you choose not to act in an angered way. That sometimes you need to take accountability for your actions. That in the end, the choice is up to you. No matter what external or internal circumstances are influencing you, you, in the end alone, have the power to make the decision to act out in an angered way or a positive way. And I hope you guys choose the positive, and make sure that you live a positive life, y'all. Peace out.